The basket slipped from Marianne Vaughn's fingers when she heard the rattlesnake's warning hiss cut through the stillness of the California afternoon. And in that frozen moment between heartbeats, she knew her 22 years of life might end right here among the sage and wild yarrow. The snake coiled not 3 feet from where she knelt, its diamond-patterned body thick as her wrist, tongue flicking as it tasted her fear in the hot September air of 1876. Marianne's breath caught in her throat, her body locked in place by instinct older than thought. The herbs she had been gathering scattered across the dry earth, their fragrant leaves mixing with dust and danger. "Don't move." The voice came low and steady from somewhere behind her, male and certain. Not even to breathe heavy. Marianne obeyed, though her heart hammered so hard she thought it might shake her whole frame. She heard the soft crunch of boots on parched ground, slow and deliberate. The snake's rattle intensified, its head drawing back. The gunshot cracked the afternoon wide open. The snake's body jerked and went still. Marianne gasped, her lungs finally remembering their purpose as she stumbled backward, landing hard on the ground. Her hands shook as she pressed them against the earth, feeling the solid reality of still being alive. "You hurt." The man who had fired moved into her line of sight, a tall figure backlit by the lowering sun. He holstered his revolver with practiced ease and extended a hand toward her. Marianne looked up at him, squinting against the light. She could make out a weathered face beneath the brim of a dusty hat, strong features lined by sun and wind, and eyes that held a striking combination of concern and calm. He appeared to be perhaps 26 or 27, old enough to have seen trouble but young enough to still meet it head-on. "I am not hurt," she managed, her voice shakier than she would have liked. She took his offered hand, feeling the callous strength of it as he pulled her easily to her feet. "Thank you. I did not hear it until too late. Rattlers blend in good out here." He released her hand but remained close, studying her face as if checking for signs of shock. "You are a fair distance from Yuba City, miss. Not many folks wander this far alone. I needed wild feverfew and red clover. They grow better out here, away from where the cattle graze and trample everything." Marianne brushed dust from her dark blue dress, trying to regain some composure. Her basket lay overturned several feet away, her morning's work scattered. "My mother runs a boarding house in town. I help her with remedies for the boarders when they take sick." The cowboy retrieved her basket without being asked, then began gathering the scattered herbs with surprising care. "That would be the Vaughn place, then. I have heard it is a respectable establishment. You know of us." Marianne moved to help him, though her hand still trembled slightly. "I came into town last week, looking for work. Mrs. Patterson at the general store spoke highly of your mother when I asked about lodging." He straightened, depositing a handful of yarrow stems into the basket. "Aaron Olsen. I hired on with the Murphy Ranch. They needed help with the autumn roundup." "Marianne Vaughn." She met his eyes properly now, finding them to be a clear gray blue, like the sky before dawn. His face was honest, she thought, not hardened despite the rough life written in every sun-carved line. "I am grateful you came along when you did, Mr. Olsen. That snake would have struck if you had not intervened. Was heading back to the ranch when I spotted you kneeling there. Something told me to come check." Aaron handed her the now full basket. "Miss Vaughn, it is not my place to tell you your business, but this is dangerous country to wander alone. Snakes are just one concern. There are wildcats, the occasional bear down from the mountains, and men who are worse than any animal." Marianne bristled slightly at the caution, though she knew it held truth. "I have been gathering herbs since I was 14 years old. I know these hills. Knowing them does not make them safer." His tone held no condescension, only genuine concern. "How far is your walk home?" 3 miles, perhaps a bit more. She gestured toward the southeast, where Yuba City lay along the Feather River, invisible from this distance but present in her mind like a map. Aaron glanced at the sun, measuring the remaining daylight. "I will walk with you. My horse is just over that rise. We can ride double if you prefer, though I understand if you would rather not." The proper thing would be to refuse, to insist she needed no escort, but Marianne found herself nodding acceptance. The encounter with the snake had shaken her more than she wanted to admit, and the walk home suddenly seemed longer and more exposed than it ever had before. "I will walk, but I thank you for the company." They set out together, Marianne clutching her basket and Aaron leading his horse, a sturdy bay gelding with intelligent eyes. For the first quarter-mile they walked in silence, but it was not uncomfortable. Marianne found herself studying her companion from the corner of her eye, noting the easy way he moved through the rough country, the unconscious competence of someone truly at home in wild places. "Have you been cowboying long?" she asked finally, wanting to fill the quiet with something other than her own racing thoughts. "Since I was 15. My father had a small ranch in Wyoming, but he died when I was 17. My mother passed 2 years before that. I sold the land to pay debts and have been working cattle for other men ever since." Aaron's voice held old grief, carefully packed away. "Came to California thinking there might be better opportunities. The state is still growing, still has room for a man to make something of himself." "Is that what you want? To have your own ranch again, someday perhaps, though land costs money and I have been saving slowly." He smiled slightly, the expression changing his whole face, softening it. "What about you, Miss Vaughn? Have you always lived in Yuba City, since I was 8? We came from Missouri after my father died. My mother had a sister here, though she died of fever within a year of our arrival. Mother opened the boarding house to support us. I help her run it." Marianne stepped carefully over a fallen branch. "It is a good life, stable and respectable. But sometimes I come out here just to remember there is more to the world than laundry and cooking and keeping accounts." "Nothing wrong with wanting open spaces," Aaron said, "though maybe you could want them a little closer to town." Despite herself, Marianne laughed. "You sound like my mother." "Smart woman, your mother." They continued walking, the conversation flowing more easily now. Aaron asked about the herbs she gathered, and Marianne found herself explaining properties of different plants, how feverfew could ease headaches and how yarrow stopped bleeding. He listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was truly paying attention. "My mother knew some herb lore," he said. "She could brew a tea that would settle any stomach ailment. Never shared the recipe, said she would teach me when I was older. But then she died, and the knowledge died with her." "That is the way of too much wisdom," Marianne said quietly, "passed by voice and hand and lost when those fall silent." The sun had lowered considerably by the time the scattered buildings of Yuba City came into view. The settlement sprawled along the Feather River, a collection of wooden structures that had grown from mining camp to agricultural town over the past 25 years. The Vaughn boarding house stood on the edge of town proper, a 2-story building with a wide porch and fresh white paint that Marianne and her mother maintained carefully. "Thank you for walking me home, Mr. Olsen," Marianne said as they approached the front gate. "I am in your debt." "No debt," Aaron replied firmly. "Any decent man would have done the same." He hesitated, his hat in his hands now, turning it slowly. "Miss Vaughn, would you permit me to call on you? Perhaps Sunday afternoon if you have no other engagements." Marianne felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with fear this time. "I would like that. We usually have Sunday dinner at 2 o'clock. You would be welcome to join us if you wish. My mother always cooks too much. I would be honored." Aaron's smile was genuine and warm. Until Sunday, then. Marianne watched him mount his horse and ride away, the bay kicking up small clouds of dust. She stood at the gate perhaps longer than necessary, her basket of herbs forgotten on her arm, until her mother's voice called from the porch. "Marianne, is everything well?" She turned to find Aaron Vaughn standing on the top step, wiping her hands on her apron. Her mother was 52, still handsome despite the gray threading her dark hair and the lines care had etched around her eyes. "Everything is well, Mother. I encountered a rattlesnake while gathering herbs. A cowboy named Aaron Olsen happened by and shot it before it could strike me. He walked me home to ensure I arrived safely." Eleanor's expression shifted from concern to something more complex. "Come inside and tell me properly. You look pale." Over tea in the kitchen, with the late afternoon light slanting through the windows, Marianne recounted the full story. Her mother listened carefully, asking occasional questions, her face unreadable. "This Mr. Olsen," Eleanor said finally, "he behaved properly, entirely. He was respectful and kind." Marianne set down her cup. "I invited him to Sunday dinner. I hope that was not presumptuous." Eleanor studied her daughter for a long moment. "You are 22 years old, Marianne, old enough to make your own choices about such things, but be careful with your heart. Cowboys are wandering men by nature. They go where the work takes them." "I know, Mother." But even as she said it, Marianne felt something shift inside her, something that recognized Aaron Olsen as different somehow, though she could not yet put words to why. The next days passed in the usual rhythm of boarding house life. Marianne and her mother cooked and cleaned, changed linens and kept accounts. They currently housed 6 boarders: 2 miners who worked claims in the nearby hills, a schoolteacher, a clerk from the land office, and 2 ranch hands who worked on the Patterson spread. The house smelled perpetually of bread and soap, and the herbs Marianne hung to dry in the kitchen. But through all the familiar tasks, Marianne found her thoughts returning again and again to Aaron Olsen. She caught herself watching the road more than usual, wondering if he might ride by. At night, lying in her narrow bed under the eaves, she replayed their conversation, hearing again the steady calm of his voice, remembering the strength of his hand pulling her to her feet. Saturday evening, as she was setting the table for supper, one of the ranch hand boarders mentioned seeing the new man at the Murphy place. "Right handy with cattle," he said, helping himself to potatoes. "Quiet fellow, but knows his business. Murphy seems pleased with him." Marianne said nothing, but her mother caught her eye across the table with a knowing look. Sunday arrived bright and warm, typical for September in the Sacramento Valley. Marianne rose early, helping her mother prepare a dinner larger than usual. Roasted chicken, potatoes, green beans from the garden, fresh bread, and an apple pie made from fruit bought at the market. The boarding house kitchen became a realm of savory scents and carefully orchestrated timing. "You are nervous," Eleanor observed, watching Marianne check the chicken for the 3rd time. "I am not nervous. I am ensuring the bird cooks properly." "You have roasted hundreds of chickens, daughter. You know perfectly well it will be ready at the proper time." But Eleanor's tone was gentle, almost amused. "He made quite an impression, this cowboy of yours." "He is not my cowboy. He is simply a man I invited to dinner out of gratitude. Of course. My mistake." Eleanor turned away, but not before Marianne caught her smile. At precisely 2 o'clock, a knock sounded at the front door. Marianne smoothed her dress, a dove-gray cotton she had carefully pressed that morning, and went to answer. Through the screen, she saw Aaron standing on the porch, his hat in his hands. He had clearly made an effort. His shirt was clean and pressed, his dark hair still damp from washing, his boots brushed free of dust. "Mr. Olsen, please come in." Marianne opened the door, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. "Miss Vaughn." He stepped inside, bringing with him the faint scent of soap and fresh air. "Thank you again for the invitation. I brought this." He held out a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Just some tea from the general store. Mrs. Patterson said it was a good blend. How thoughtful." Marianne accepted the package. "Please, come meet my mother." Alina received Aaron with gracious courtesy, her shrewd eyes assessing him even as she welcomed him warmly. The other boarders joined them for the meal, turning the dining table into a lively gathering. Aaron fit in easily, answering questions about his work without boasting, listening more than he spoke, showing respect to everyone present. Marianne watched him interact with her mother, noting the care he took in addressing her properly, the way he insisted on helping clear plates despite Alina's protests that guests did no such thing. He was genuine, she realized. There was no false charm, no performance meant to impress. He was simply himself, and that self was decent and steady. After dinner, as was her custom on Sunday afternoons, Marianne walked to the small cemetery at the edge of town to place flowers on her father's grave. She mentioned this quietly to Aaron, not quite an invitation but not quite excluding him either. "I could walk with you if you would like the company," he offered, "or I can take my leave if you prefer to go alone. The company would be welcome." They walked together through the quiet Sunday streets, past houses where families gathered on porches seeking relief from the heat. Children played in yards, their voices high and carefree. The cemetery sat beneath a stand of oak trees, providing blessed shade and a sense of peace. Marianne knelt beside a simple stone marker that read James Vaughn, 1822–1868, beloved husband and father. She arranged the wildflowers she had brought in a small glass jar, her fingers gentle. "I was 8 when he died," she said softly, aware of Aaron standing a respectful distance behind her. "Fever took him in 3 days. One moment he was healthy and strong, the next he was gone. My mother was devastated, but she never let me see her break. She held herself together for my sake and brought us here to start again." "That takes remarkable strength," Aaron said. "It does." Marianne stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. "I try to honor her sacrifice by being helpful, by making our life here successful. But sometimes I worry that I am meant for something more than just keeping house, you know. That sounds ungrateful, I know." "It does not sound ungrateful. It sounds human." Aaron moved to stand beside her, his eyes on the grave marker. "We can love our lives and still wonder about other possibilities. The two things are not opposed to each other." They stood together in comfortable silence, the afternoon light filtering through the oak leaves above. When they finally walked back toward town, something had shifted between them, some deepening of connection that went beyond gratitude or surface attraction. At the boarding house gate, Aaron paused. "Miss Vaughn, I know I only just met you, but I find myself hoping to know you better. Would you permit me to call on you again? Perhaps we could take a proper walk in town where there are no snakes or other dangers." "I would like that very much, Mr. Olsen." "Aaron," he said, "I would be pleased if you called me Aaron. Then you must call me Marianne." His smile was sunrise bright. "Marianne. Until next time, then." Over the following weeks, Aaron became a regular presence in Marianne's life. He called on Sunday afternoons when his work permitted, and sometimes in the evenings after his ranch duties were done. They walked together through town, along the river, through the safer meadows where Marianne had once gathered herbs alone. He never let her walk unaccompanied now, appearing whenever she mentioned needing to venture beyond the immediate town boundaries. "You do not have to escort me every time," she protested one afternoon as they walked toward a field where late-season elderberries grew. "I know I do not have to," Aaron replied. "I want to. After that day with the snake, I cannot help but worry when I think of you out here alone. I managed fine for years before I met you. I know that too. You are capable and strong and intelligent." He caught her hand, stopping their walk. "But now that I know you exist in the world, Marianne, I find I cannot bear the thought of something happening to you. Let me worry. Let me make sure you are safe. Please." The earnestness in his voice, the genuine care in his eyes, melted any protest she might have made. "Very well, but you must promise not to hover so much that I feel caged." "I promise." As autumn deepened into October, their relationship deepened with it. Aaron shared stories of his childhood in Wyoming, of learning to ride before he could properly walk, of his mother's herb garden and his father's small herd of cattle. Marianne spoke of Missouri, of foggy memories of life before her father died, of the journey west and the struggle to establish themselves in a new place. They discovered shared values, a belief in honesty, a respect for hard work, a love of the natural world. They also discovered differences. Aaron was content with silence. Marianne loved conversation. He was naturally cautious. She sometimes acted on impulse. But the differences felt complementary rather than divisive, two pieces that fit together better for their unique shapes. Alina watched the developing romance with careful approval. One evening in late October, as Marianne was washing dishes, her mother spoke quietly. "He is a good man, your Aaron." "He is not my Aaron." But the protest was automatic, almost teasing. "Is he not? You certainly spend enough time together, and the way he looks at you, daughter, that is not casual affection." Marianne set down the plate she was drying, her heart quickening. "What are you saying, mother?" "I am saying that I see a man falling in love with my daughter. And I see my daughter falling in love with him. I am saying I approve if that matters to you." "It matters very much." Marianne embraced her mother, grateful beyond words. "I did not want to hope too much. Cowboys do wander, as you said. What if he moves on?" "Some men wander because they have not found a reason to stay. Aaron has found his reason. Trust me, I recognize the signs." The next Sunday, Aaron asked Marianne to take a longer walk than usual. They headed toward the river, following the bank until they reached a spot where cottonwoods grew thick and the water ran clear over smooth stones. The November air was crisp, but not yet cold, the sky a brilliant blue. "I have been thinking," Aaron said, his voice carrying a nervous edge that Marianne had not heard before, "about the future, about what I want my life to look like." Marianne's breath caught. "What have you concluded?" "That I have been saving money for land and cattle, working toward building something of my own. That has been my goal for years." He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "But lately, I have realized that land and cattle mean nothing if I have no one to share them with. Marianne, these past 2 months have been the happiest of my life. You have become essential to me in ways I cannot fully express. I wake up thinking of you. I count the hours until I can see you again." "Aaron." His name came out as barely a whisper. "I know I am just a cowboy with modest savings and no guarantee of what tomorrow holds. But I am a hard worker, and I am honest, and I love you more than I thought it possible to love another person." His hands tightened on hers. "Would you consider becoming my wife? I know I should speak to your mother first, follow proper courtship customs, but I need to know if you could even want such a thing before I go any further." Tears sprang to Marianne's eyes, but they were tears of joy so fierce it felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Yes. Yes, I will marry you. I love you, Aaron. I have loved you since the day you walked me home, and I realized I felt safer with you than I ever had alone." He pulled her into his arms then, holding her close, and Marianne felt the rightness of it down to her bones. When he kissed her, gentle and reverent, The world seemed to align itself properly for the first time. They sat by the river for hours, making plans and dreaming aloud. Aaron wanted to continue saving until he could buy land, perhaps a small parcel outside town where they could raise cattle and horses. Marianne talked about growing a large herb garden, maybe even selling remedies to the local doctor. They spoke of a house, modest but sturdy, with room to grow as their family grew. "How many children do you want?" Marianne asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "As many as we are blessed with. 2, 6, a dozen. As long as they are healthy and you are healthy, I will be grateful for however many we have." That evening, Aaron formally asked Alina for permission to marry her daughter. Alina, who had clearly been expecting this, gave her blessing with obvious happiness. They set a date for mid-December, giving them time to make necessary preparations, but not waiting so long that the winter weather might turn difficult. The next weeks were a flurry of activity. Marianne sewed a wedding dress from ivory cotton, simple but elegant. Alina began cooking and preparing for a modest reception at the boarding house. Aaron worked extra hours, saving every penny toward their future. He also built furniture in his spare time. A bed frame, a table, chairs, all crafted with obvious care and skill. "I did not know you were a carpenter too," Marianne said, running her hand over the smooth wood of the table he showed her. "My father taught me, said every man should know how to build what he needs." Aaron watched her face anxiously. "Do you like it? I can make changes if you want." "It is perfect. You are perfect." She kissed him, still marveling at her right to do so. December 15th arrived clear and cold, unusual weather for the valley but beautiful in its crispness. The small church on Main Street filled with townspeople who had come to know and respect the Vaughn family over the years. Marianne wore her ivory dress and carried a bouquet of dried herbs and winter greenery. Alina stood beside her, tears streaming down her face, holding her daughter's hand until the last possible moment. Aaron waited at the altar in a new suit, his face solemn with the gravity of the vows he was about to make. When Marianne walked down the aisle toward him, his expression transformed into pure joy. The ceremony was simple but profound, their promises spoken with complete sincerity. "I, Aaron, take you, Marianne, to be my wife. I promise to protect you, to honor you, to walk beside you all the days of my life. I, Marianne, take you, Aaron, to be my husband. I promise to love you, to trust you, to build a life with you that honors us both." When they were pronounced husband and wife, Aaron kissed her tenderly, and the small congregation erupted in applause. The reception at the boarding house was warm and joyful, filled with food and laughter and well wishes. The boarders had decorated the dining room with ribbons and candles. Someone produced a fiddle, and there was dancing in the parlor, the furniture pushed back to make room. As evening fell, Aaron and Marianne slipped away to the small cabin Aaron had rented on the edge of town, a temporary home until they could build their own. It was modest but clean, and Aaron had filled it with the furniture he had built. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm light across everything. "Welcome home, Mrs. Olsen," Aaron said, carrying her across the threshold. Marianne laughed, the sound pure and free. "It feels strange to be called that, but I like it." That night they learned each other with tenderness and care, building the physical intimacy that would sustain their marriage through all that was to come. Marianne had never felt so treasured, so completely loved. Aaron was gentle, attentive to her needs, and when she finally fell asleep in his arms, she thought she had never been so content. The winter passed in a haze of newlywed happiness. Aaron continued working at the Murphy Ranch while Marianne helped her mother at the boarding house. They saved every penny they could, keeping their eyes on the goal of their own land. In the evenings, they sat by their fire and dreamed aloud, making plans that grew more detailed with each passing day. In February, opportunity arrived unexpectedly. A farmer named Henderson, who owned 160 acres southeast of town, announced he was selling and returning to his family in Ohio. The land was good, with water access and decent grazing. Aaron and Marianne went to look at it together, walking the property with growing excitement. "We could build here," Aaron said, pointing to a slight rise that would offer views of the valley. "Good drainage, close enough to town but far enough for privacy. There is already fencing on 3 sides, and I could have my garden there." Marianne indicated a flat area with good sun exposure. "The soil looks rich." They made an offer that evening, stretching their savings to the limit. Henderson accepted, and by early March, Aaron and Marianne Olsen owned their own land. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. Aaron, who had lost his father's ranch and spent years working for others, finally had earth he could call his own. Marianne, who had always dreamed of something beyond the boarding house, had space to grow and create. Building the house consumed the spring. Aaron worked with skilled determination, and several men from town volunteered their labor, respecting the young couple's work ethic and integrity. The structure took shape gradually. A solid 2-room cabin with potential for expansion. A front porch facing the sunset, real glass windows that Aaron bought with careful saving. Marianne helped however she could, bringing water and food to the workers, learning to use hammer and saw under Aaron's patient instruction. She planted her herb garden, setting out starts and seeds with optimistic faith in the growing season ahead. They moved into the unfinished house in May, unable to wait any longer to truly begin their life together on their own land. The first night, lying on their mattress on the floor because the bed frame was not yet assembled, they listened to the wind in the grass and the distant sound of the river. "We did it," Marianne whispered. "We actually built this. We did." Aaron pulled her closer. "And this is just the beginning. Wait until we have the barn up, cattle in the pasture, maybe chickens and pigs. Wait until we fill these rooms with children and noise and life." "I cannot wait," Marianne said, and meant it with her whole heart. Summer brought blessings and challenges in equal measure. Aaron bought 6 head of cattle, the beginning of what he hoped would grow into a substantial herd. Marianne's herb garden flourished beyond expectation, and she began selling dried herbs and remedies to the doctor in town, adding to their modest income. The house gained finishing touches. Shelves and cupboards, curtains Marianne sewed, a braided rug for the floor. In August, Marianne discovered she was pregnant. She told Aaron one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun paint the sky orange and gold. "I saw Dr. Mitchell today. He confirmed what I already suspected. We are going to have a baby, Aaron. Next March, he thinks." Aaron's face cycled through shock, joy, and something close to reverence. "A baby, our baby." He knelt beside her chair, his hand gentle on her stomach. "Are you well? Is everything as it should be? Everything is perfect. I feel strong and healthy." She covered his hand with hers. "We are going to be parents. I am going to be a father." Aaron's voice cracked slightly on the last word. "Marianne, I promise you, I will be the best father I know how to be. This child will know they are loved and wanted every day of their life. I know. I have never doubted that for a moment." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the autumn. Marianne continued her work in the garden and around the homestead, refusing to be coddled though Aaron worried constantly. He built a cradle from oak, sanding it until every surface was silk smooth, safe for the most delicate skin. Elinor visited frequently, bringing baby clothes she had sewn and advice gleaned from her own experience. Winter arrived, and with it came the waiting. Marianne grew round and uncomfortable but remained in good spirits. Aaron hardly let her walk from room to room without hovering nearby, ready to assist if needed. She tolerated his concern with patient amusement, knowing it came from love. On a cold night in mid-March, exactly 1 week after their first wedding anniversary, Marianne's labor began. Aaron rode to town in record time, fetching both Dr. Mitchell and Alina. The next hours were long and difficult, but when dawn broke on March 22nd, 1878, a baby's cry filled the small house. "A boy," Dr. Mitchell announced, placing the squalling infant in Marianne's arms. Strong and healthy, with a fine set of lungs on him. Marianne looked down at her son, at the tiny perfect face and the small hands that waved in confusion, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. When Aaron knelt beside the bed, his face wet with tears, she placed the baby in his arms. "Your son," she said softly. "Our son." Aaron held the child with infinite gentleness, his expression one of absolute wonder. "Hello, little one, I am your father. I have been waiting to meet you." They named him James, after Marianne's father, with a middle name of Thomas after Aaron's. James Thomas Olsen proved to be a healthy, hungry baby who quickly established himself as the center of his parents' universe. Aaron balanced work on the ranch with helping Marianne care for their son, changing diapers and walking the floor with James on fussy nights without complaint. "I thought I knew what love was," Aaron said one evening, watching Marianne nurse their son. "But this is something beyond what I imagined. Looking at him, at you, I feel blessed beyond measure. I know exactly what you mean." Marianne stroked James's soft hair, marveling at the tiny perfection of him. "Sometimes I think back to that day I was gathering herbs when you shot the snake and walked me home. That moment changed the entire course of my life, changed both our lives." Aaron moved to sit beside them, his arm around Marianne's shoulders. "I thank God for rattlesnakes and herb gathering and whatever combination of circumstances brought us together." The years that followed were full and rich, marked by both struggle and joy as all lives are. The ranch grew steadily. Aaron proved himself a skilled rancher, his herd increasing year by year. Marianne's herb business expanded. She became known throughout the region for the quality of her remedies. The little house gained additions as their family grew. In 1880, Marianne gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Alice Rose. She had her father's gray-blue eyes and her mother's dark hair, and she wrapped both parents around her tiny fingers from the first moment. James, now 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything from diaper changes to bottle feeding. 2 years later, another son arrived, Matthew Aaron, a placid baby who rarely cried and seemed content to observe the world with solemn interest. Their family felt complete, though both Aaron and Marianne agreed they would welcome however many children they were blessed with. Alina remained a constant presence in their lives, dividing her time between the boarding house and helping with her grandchildren. She glowed with happiness watching her daughter thrive, seeing the family Marianne and Aaron had built together. Life fell into patterns that felt sacred in their ordinariness. Aaron rose before dawn to tend cattle, coming in for breakfast with mud on his boots and satisfaction in his eyes. Marianne managed the household, the garden, the children, creating a home that was always welcoming and warm. Evenings found them together on the porch, children playing in the yard, watching the sun set over land they owned and had worked with their own hands. But life also brought sorrows. In the winter of 1883, Alina fell ill with pneumonia. Despite Marianne's best efforts with her herbs and Dr. Mitchell's care, Alina died peacefully in her sleep one January night. Marianne grieved deeply, but found comfort in knowing her mother had lived to see her happily settled, had known her grandchildren, had died knowing her sacrifices had borne beautiful fruit. Aaron held his wife through her grief, providing the steady strength she needed. He took over more of the household duties, caring for the children while Marianne processed her loss. When she finally emerged from the worst of her sorrow, it was with renewed appreciation for the life they had built, for the love they shared. The years continued their steady march. The children grew from babies to toddlers to young people with personalities and dreams of their own. James showed an early aptitude for working cattle, following his father around the ranch from the time he could walk steadily. Alice proved to be artistic, drawing pictures of everything she saw and begging for paper and pencils. Matthew inherited his mother's interest in plants, helping in the herb garden and asking endless questions about what each plant could do. Aaron and Marianne grew into middle age together, their love deepening with each passing year. They knew each other completely now, could communicate with a glance, finish each other's thoughts. The passion of their early years had not dimmed, but had transformed into something richer and more sustaining. On their 10th wedding anniversary in December of 1887, they stood together on their porch, looking out over their land. The ranch now boasted over 100 head of cattle, several horses, productive gardens, and a barn that Aaron and James had built the previous summer. The house had been expanded twice, now a comfortable 6-room structure with space for their growing family. "You remember the day we met?" Marianne asked, leaning into Aaron's warmth against the winter chill. "Every detail, the way you looked kneeling in the dust, the scatter of herbs around you, the fear in your eyes when you saw that snake." Aaron's arm tightened around her. "I remember thinking you were the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, even terrified and disheveled. I remember thinking you appeared like an answer to a prayer I had not known I was praying." She turned to face him. "That day, you walked me home and promised you would never let me walk alone again. You have kept that promise, Aaron. Every single day for 10 years you have walked beside me. It has been my greatest honor." He kissed her forehead, then her lips, gentle and sure. "And I will keep walking beside you for all the years we have left. Through whatever comes, good or bad, you will never walk alone." From inside the house came the sounds of their children, James helping Matthew with his arithmetic while Alice sang to herself as she drew. Those sounds, Marianne thought, were the music of the life she and Aaron had created together. A life built on love and trust, and the simple act of one person choosing to walk beside another. The winter of 1888 brought heavy snows, unusual for the valley but not unheard of. Aaron worked long hours ensuring the cattle had food and shelter, often coming in exhausted and half-frozen. Marianne kept the house warm, kept food ready at all hours, kept their children safe and occupied while their father worked himself to the bone. One evening in February, Aaron came in later than usual, his face drawn with worry. "Lost 3 head to the cold," he said, sinking into a chair by the fire. "Found them this morning in the north pasture. Should have brought them closer in." "You cannot predict everything," Marianne said, kneeling to pull off his frozen boots. "You have saved far more than you have lost. The herd is still strong." "I know, but it still cuts deep seeing animals suffer." She understood. Aaron's care for his cattle went beyond economics. He felt responsible for every creature in his charge. It was part of why he was such a good father, such a good husband. He took his responsibilities seriously, to the point of occasional excess. The spring of 1888 brought renewal and hope. The snows melted, grass greened, and the cattle thrived. Aaron recouped his winter losses and then some, selling cattle at good prices. Marianne's herb business continued to grow. She now supplied 3 doctors and several families who relied on her remedies. In June, Marianne discovered she was pregnant again, a surprise given that Matthew was now 6 years old. She and Aaron had assumed their family was complete, but the news brought joy rather than concern. They had the resources to support another child, and all 3 of their children were delighted at the prospect of a new baby. "I hope it is another girl," Alice said, now 8 years old and very definite in her opinions. "Matthew and James are all right, but I would like a sister." "Baby will be what baby will be," Marianne said, but she secretly hoped for another girl too, someone to eventually share Alice's interests and energy. The pregnancy proved more difficult than her previous ones. Marianne was now 34, no longer a young woman. She tired more easily, struggled more with the physical demands of carrying a child. Dr. Mitchell advised rest, but rest was hard to come by on a working ranch with 3 active children. Aaron took on even more responsibility, managing both ranch work and household duties when needed. James, now 10, stepped up to help his father with cattle work. Alice managed cooking when her mother could not. Matthew kept the house tidy and helped with laundry. They pulled together as a family, each person contributing what they could. In early February of 1889, Marianne gave birth to twin girls, a complete surprise since twins did not run in either family. The babies were small but healthy, identical in every way, with dark hair and their mother's brown eyes. They named them Sarah Catherine and Emma Louise, and suddenly the house was filled with twice the baby noise anyone had anticipated. "Twins," Aaron said, holding one daughter in each arm, his expression equal parts overwhelmed and overjoyed. "We have twins. How are we going to tell them apart?" "We will figure it out," Marianne said from the bed, exhausted but happy. "We always figure things out." And they did. Life with infant twins was chaotic, but the whole family adapted. James, Alice, and Matthew doted on their baby sisters. Aaron somehow managed ranch work while being remarkably present for his family. Marianne recovered slowly but steadily, finding new reserves of strength she had not known she possessed. The 1890s brought continued growth and prosperity. The ranch expanded to over 300 acres, the herd to over 200 head. They built a new, larger house, keeping the original structure as a guest house for when family visited. Aaron took on hired help for the first time, 2 young cowboys eager to learn the ranching business. The children grew and changed. James, at 13, was already as tall as his father and showed every sign of becoming a skilled rancher. Alice discovered a talent for sewing and began making clothes for the whole family, beautiful garments that drew admiration from everyone who saw them. Matthew, 11 now, had become his mother's apprentice in herb lore, learning to identify plants and prepare remedies with surprising skill. The twins, Sarah and Emma, were 3 years old and utterly inseparable, speaking their own twin language that no one else could quite decipher. They were mischievous and clever, keeping their parents constantly on their toes. On a warm evening in September of 1892, Aaron and Marianne celebrated their 17th wedding anniversary by taking a rare evening alone. They rode to the spot by the river where Aaron had proposed, leaving the children in James's capable care. 17 years, Marianne said, sitting beside the water as the sun set. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes it feels like forever. Forever in the best way, Aaron said. He was 43 now, his dark hair threaded with silver, his face deeply lined by sun and work. But his eyes were still the same clear gray-blue, still looked at Marianne with undiminished love. "I would live these 17 years again without changing a single thing. Not even the hard parts." The winters and the losses and my mother's death, not even those. They are part of our story, part of what made us who we are." He took her hand, his calloused palm familiar and dear. "Every moment with you has been a gift, Marianne, the good and the bad together." She leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the river flow past. They had built something remarkable, she thought. Not just a ranch or a business, but a life filled with love and purpose. Their children were healthy and happy. Their partnership was strong. The future stretched ahead with promise. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "The day we met when you shot the rattlesnake. All the time. I think about how easily things could have gone differently, if I had ridden a different path, if I had not stopped to check on you, if that snake had struck before I could fire." Aaron's voice roughened. "I thank God regularly that circumstances aligned exactly as they did. I thank Him too." Marianne lifted her head to look at her husband. "You saved my life that day in more ways than one, not just from the snake, but from a life half lived. You showed me what love could be, what partnership could create." Aaron kissed her then, slow and deep, and Marianne felt the same flutter in her heart that she had felt at 17, at 22, at 34. Love, she had learned, did not fade with familiarity. It transformed, deepened, became something more essential than air. They stayed by the river until full dark, talking and dreaming, planning for the future. Aaron spoke of expanding the ranch further, of building a legacy for their children. Marianne talked about teaching her herb knowledge to Matthew and any other children who showed interest, ensuring the wisdom was not lost. "James will make a fine rancher," Aaron said. "He has the instinct for it, and the dedication. I am thinking of deeding him a portion of the land when he turns 21, letting him start his own herd within our boundaries. That is a generous gift. He will appreciate it." Marianne smiled in the darkness. "Alice wants to open a dress shop in town. She has been talking about it for months. Then we will help her do it when she is ready." "What about Matthew?" "Matthew wants to be a doctor, I think. He loves the healing arts. We should support that if we can." "We will. Whatever our children need to build their own lives, we will provide if it is within our power." Aaron stood, helping Marianne to her feet. "Come, let us go home to our beautiful chaos." They rode home under a sky full of stars, the house lights visible from a distance, a beacon of warmth and belonging. Marianne felt a profound sense of gratitude for everything her life had become, for the man riding beside her who had kept his promise to never let her walk alone. The mid-1890s brought changes both expected and surprising. James, at 18, fell in love with a girl from town, the daughter of the local banker. Her name was Clara, and she was sweet-natured and practical, exactly the kind of partner James needed. Aaron and Marianne gave their blessing, and the wedding took place in the spring of 1897. True to his word, Aaron deeded James 50 acres and helped him build a small house on the property, keeping the young couple close. Alice, 16, had indeed opened her dress shop in Yuba City, working from a small storefront on Main Street. Her designs were increasingly sought after, and she employed 2 other young women to help with the sewing. She showed no interest yet in marriage, declaring herself too busy building her business to worry about courting. Matthew, 14, had begun studying with Dr. Mitchell, apprenticing to learn medicine. He spent mornings at the clinic and afternoons studying from medical texts the doctor lent him. His passion for healing was evident in everything he did. The twins, Sarah and Emma, were 8 years old and attending the town school, where their teacher reported they were both bright students who unfortunately spent more time whispering to each other than paying attention to lessons. Aaron and Marianne did their best to encourage focus, but secretly they found their daughter's closeness endearing. In the autumn of 1898, tragedy struck when a wildfire swept through the valley. It started miles to the north, pushed by strong winds, consuming everything in its path. Aaron and every able-bodied man in the area fought to contain it, digging fire breaks and beating back flames with wet sacks. For 3 days, Marianne did not know if her husband would come home. She kept the children close, prepared to evacuate if the fire turned their direction, and prayed with an intensity she had not felt since the day she faced down the rattlesnake 22 years earlier. On the 4th day, Aaron came home, blackened with soot, exhausted beyond measure but alive. The fire had been contained before reaching their property, though several neighbors had lost barns and pastureland. Marianne held her husband and wept with relief, feeling once again the fragility of all they had built, how quickly it could be taken away. "We are safe," Aaron murmured into her hair. "Everyone is safe. That is what matters." The community came together in the fire's aftermath, helping those who had lost rebuild. The Olsen ranch provided temporary pasture for displaced cattle, and Marianne organized the women to provide meals for families struggling to get back on their feet. It was what neighbors did, what community meant, and Marianne felt proud to be part of something larger than just her own family. As the century turned from 1800s to 1900s, Marianne and Aaron found themselves in their 50s, officially middle-aged, with grown and nearly grown children. They had become the older generation now, the ones younger people looked to for wisdom and experience. James and Clara had given them 2 grandchildren, a boy and a girl, who visited frequently and were spoiled outrageously by their grandparents. Alice's dress shop continued to thrive, and she had started receiving orders from as far away as Sacramento and San Francisco. Matthew had been accepted to medical school in San Francisco, a prestigious opportunity that filled his parents with pride. The twins, now 12, were beginning to develop distinct interests. Sarah loved working with the horses, showing a natural skill that reminded Aaron of himself at that age. Emma preferred working in the herb garden with her mother, displaying the same patience and careful attention that healing work required. On a warm June evening in 1901, Aaron and Marianne sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. They held hands, comfortable in the silence that long marriage creates, the ability to be together without needing to fill every moment with words. 23 years, Marianne said finally. Sometimes I still cannot quite believe it. All of this, everything we have built together. Best 23 years a man could ask for, Aaron replied. His hair was nearly all silver now, his face deeply weathered, but his hands were still strong, his back still straight. If I had known that day when I saw you kneeling in the dust, that walking you home would lead to all this, I would have run, not walked. Marianne laughed, the sound still bright despite the years. Would you really? We were strangers. You had no reason to think I would be anything more than a woman who needed help. I had every reason. I looked into your eyes and saw something I had been searching for without knowing it, courage and intelligence and spirit. I knew right then, in some deep part of myself, that you were going to matter. Aaron brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I have never been so right about anything in my life. They sat in contented silence as the stars emerged, the sounds of their family inside the house a comforting backdrop. Sarah's laugh rang out, followed by Emma's. Matthew's voice, deeper now, said something that made the twins laugh harder. Alice was in town at her shop, but she would be home soon for the family dinner they shared every Sunday. We did good work here, Marianne said softly. Raising our children, building this ranch, creating a life worth living. I am proud of us, Aaron. As am I. He squeezed her hand. And we are not done yet. We have years ahead of us still, God willing. Grandchildren to spoil, the ranch to continue building, each other to love. The best may still be ahead. Promise me something, Marianne said, turning to look at him directly. Promise me that no matter what the years bring, we will face it together. That you will keep walking beside me as you have since the day we met. I promise. For all the days I have left, I will walk beside you. You will never walk alone, Marianne. Not ever. Aaron's voice was firm, the same steadiness that had drawn her to him in the beginning still present. That is the easiest promise I have ever made, and the most important one I will ever keep. The years that followed bore out that promise. Through joys and sorrows, successes and setbacks, Aaron and Marianne walked together. They saw their children married, established in lives and careers of their own. They welcomed more grandchildren, eventually a total of 11, each one treasured. They watched their ranch continue to thrive, passing into James's capable management as Aaron gradually stepped back from the most demanding work. They also faced losses. Friends and neighbors aged and passed. The world changed around them in ways both wonderful and concerning. But through everything, they had each other, the partnership they had forged that first day remaining strong and true. In 1910, on their 33rd wedding anniversary, Aaron and Marianne took another ride to the river, just as they had done so many times over the years. They were both in their late 50s now, their bodies bearing the marks of hard work and passing time, but their love remained vibrant and alive. 33 years, Aaron said, echoing their conversation from so many anniversaries past. And I love you more now than I did the day we married. How is that possible? Marianne asked, though she felt the same. How does love keep growing instead of wearing out? Because we tend it. Because we choose it every day, even when it is hard. Because we built our lives on a foundation of respect and trust, not just passion. Aaron pulled her close, his arms still strong around her. You are my greatest blessing, Marianne. Everything good in my life stems from you. They kissed as the sun set, 59 and 56 years old, kissing with the same tenderness and desire they had felt as newlyweds. Some things, Marianne thought, truly did improve with time. The years rolled on. The 1910s brought a changing world, with automobiles replacing horses on some roads, electric lights coming to town, telephone lines connecting households. Aaron and Marianne adapted to the changes while maintaining the essential rhythms of their life. The ranch continued to thrive. Their children and grandchildren remained close, creating an extended family network that provided support and joy. In the spring of 1915, Aaron fell ill with influenza that settled into his lungs. For weeks, he fought the infection, his strong body struggling against an invisible enemy. Marianne nursed him tirelessly, using every herb and remedy she knew, calling on Matthew, now a practicing doctor, for additional help. Aaron recovered, but slowly, and he was never quite as strong afterward. He accepted his limitations with grace, joking that he had earned the right to slow down at 66. But Marianne saw the frustration in his eyes sometimes, the regret of a capable man facing the reality of aging. You have worked hard all your life, she told him one afternoon as they sat on the porch. No one could ask more of you. Rest now, enjoy what we have built, I know, and I am grateful for every moment, but I confess I do not like feeling weak. You are not weak, you are human. There is a difference. Marianne took his hand. Besides, I rather like having you around more. We have time for longer conversations, more time to simply be together. That is true. Aaron smiled, the expression lighting his weathered face. Every moment with you is still my favorite way to spend time. They had 5 more good years together. Years of watching grandchildren grow, of seeing great-grandchildren born. Years of sitting on their porch, walking their land, sharing the accumulated memories of nearly 4 decades together. Years of holding hands and sharing silence, of knowing each other so completely that words often became unnecessary. In the winter of 1920, Aaron suffered a heart attack while working in the barn. James found him and brought him to the house, where Matthew came immediately, but there was little to be done. Aaron lingered for 3 days, conscious but weakening. His family gathered around him. Marianne never left his side. She held his hand, talked to him about their life together, reminded him of all the beautiful things they had experienced. On the 3rd evening, with the winter sun setting outside their window, Aaron looked at his wife with perfect clarity. "I kept my promise," he said, his voice weak but certain. "I walked beside you, never let you be alone. You did. You kept every promise you ever made to me." Tears streamed down Marianne's face. "I have been so blessed to share my life with you. The blessing was mine, every single day." Aaron's hand tightened weakly on hers. "I love you, Marianne. From the moment I saw you until this moment and beyond, you made my life meaningful. I love you too, more than words can express." Aaron smiled one last time, looked at his children and grandchildren gathered around, and then closed his eyes. He died peacefully, just as the last light faded from the sky, leaving the world in darkness that Marianne felt echo in her soul. The grief was profound. After 43 years of walking beside Aaron, Marianne felt untethered, lost in ways she had not experienced since her father's death when she was 8 years old. Her children surrounded her with love and support, but nothing could fill the Aaron-shaped hole in her life. She remained on the ranch, unable to imagine being anywhere else. This land held every memory of her life with Aaron. She could see him everywhere she looked, working in the barn, riding the fence line, playing with grandchildren in the yard. The house still smelled faintly of him, leather and wood smoke and the outdoors. Slowly, over months and then years, Marianne found a new equilibrium. The grief did not disappear, but it transformed into something she could carry. She found purpose in teaching her grandchildren and great-grandchildren about herbs, passing down the knowledge that had sustained her life. She found comfort in being surrounded by the family she and Aaron had created, seeing pieces of him in every descendant. On what would have been their 45th wedding anniversary, Marianne rode alone to the river. She was 73 now, still capable though moving more slowly, her hair entirely silver, her hands knotted with arthritis. She sat by the water where Aaron had proposed, where they had returned so many times over the years. "I miss you," she said aloud to the empty air. "Every single day I miss you, but I am grateful beyond measure for every year we had. You gave me a life I could never have imagined, Aaron. You kept your promise, walked beside me, and never let me feel alone even when we were apart." She sat until the sun set, feeling Aaron's presence in the rustle of cottonwood leaves, in the flow of the river, in the land itself that they had worked and loved together. When she finally rode home, she felt at peace in a way she had not since his death. Marianne lived another 7 years, dying peacefully in her sleep in the spring of 1927 at the age of 79. She was surrounded by family to the end, her mind sharp and her heart full. Her last words were, "Aaron," spoken with a smile, and those who heard believed she saw him waiting for her. They buried her beside Aaron on a hill overlooking the ranch, the same hill where they had built their first home 50 years earlier. The funeral drew hundreds of people whose lives Marianne and Aaron had touched. Their 5 children stood together, united in grief, but also in gratitude for parents who had loved each other so completely and had created a legacy of love that would continue through generations. James stood at the grave, his own hair gray now, and spoke for all of them. Our parents met when Father saved Mother from a rattlesnake. He walked her home that day, and he never let her walk alone again. For 43 years they walked together, building a life and a family that honored them both. They taught us what love looks like in action, every single day. They showed us that promises kept and commitments honored create something that death cannot destroy. We stand here today as living proof of their love, and we will carry forward what they built together. They walked together in life. Now they rest together, and we who love them will ensure their legacy continues for generations to come. The ranch continued under James's management, then passed to his children and eventually to his grandchildren. The Olsen name remained prominent in Yuba City, synonymous with integrity and hard work. The dress shop Alice had founded grew into a successful business that her daughters continued. Matthew's medical practice served the community for 40 years, his skill in herbs learned from his mother enhancing his traditional medical knowledge. Sarah became a renowned horse trainer, her methods copied throughout California. Emma opened a clinic where she combined herb lore with nursing, creating a healing practice that served those who could not afford traditional doctors. All of Aaron and Marianne's children, and their children after them, carried forward the values their parents had lived. Honesty, hard work, love that showed itself in action rather than just words. Decades later, when Aaron and Marianne's great-great-grandchildren asked about the family history, they were told the story of how it all began. How a young woman gathering herbs had been saved from a rattlesnake by a cowboy. How he walked her home and, in doing so, found his home. How one moment of danger transformed into a lifetime of love. How two people who barely knew each other built something that lasted beyond their own lives, creating ripples that extended through time. The story became family legend, told and retold, the details varying slightly in each telling but the essential truth remaining constant. Love that is tended grows. Promises kept create trust that sustains through difficulty. Walking beside someone, truly being present in their life, is the greatest gift one person can give another. And on quiet evenings, when descendants of Aaron and Marianne walked the land they had claimed and cultivated, some swore they could feel the presence of their ancestors in the wind, in the grass, in the very earth itself. A presence that seemed to whisper the same message across the generations. You are never alone when you walk in love. The ranch still stands, over a century later, worked by the fifth and sixth generation of Olsens. The original cabin, carefully preserved, serves as a reminder of humble beginnings and the power of two people committed to building something together. Inside, carefully framed, hangs a faded photograph from 1890, showing Aaron and Marianne in middle age, surrounded by their 5 children. Aaron's hand rests on Marianne's shoulder, her hand covers his. They are smiling, their faces showing the contentment of people who have found their place in the world. Below the photograph, a small brass plaque reads, Aaron Olsen, 1851–1920, and Marianne Vaughn Olsen, 1854–1927. He walked her home and never let her walk alone again. Their love built this family and this legacy. May we honor them by walking together as they did, in love and faith and unshakable commitment. And so the story that began with a rattlesnake and a cowboy and a basket of scattered herbs continues, not as history but as living legacy. Proof that love truly does conquer all, and that the promises we make to each other can echo through time, shaping generations yet to come. Aaron kept his promise to Marianne, and in doing so, he created something that would never truly end. A love story that would be told and retold, inspiring others to walk together, to keep their promises, to build lives of meaning and purpose together. The sun sets over the California Valley, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, illuminating the land that Aaron and Marianne claimed as their own so many years ago. The grass whispers in the evening breeze, cattle low in distant pastures, a horse whinnies from the barn. The sounds of family life emanate from the house, children's laughter and adult conversation blending together in the timeless music of home. And if you listen carefully, standing on that land that has seen so much love and life and legacy, you might hear an echo across the years, a whisper on the wind that sounds like a promise kept, a vow fulfilled, a love that transcends death itself. You might hear Aaron's voice, steady and sure, saying the words he said so many times across their 43 years together. "You will never walk alone." And you might hear Marianne's response, equally clear and certain. "I know. I have never doubted it for a moment." Their story ended, but it also continues in every descendant who walks that land, in every person who hears their tale and resolves to love more completely, to keep promises more faithfully, to walk beside those they love with presence and commitment. Aaron and Marianne Olsen lived and died, but what they built together, what they created through simple acts of love repeated day after day across decades, remains eternal. This is the power of walking beside another person. This is the legacy of promises kept. This is what happens when a cowboy saves a woman from danger and then decides to save her from ever facing danger alone again. This is love, in all its messy, beautiful, complicated, simple glory. This is what matters in the end, when all the years have passed and all that remains is the mark we leave on the people we loved and who loved us in return. Aaron walked Marianne home. He never let her walk alone again. And in doing so, he taught generations what love truly means.